Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your friend Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Dug McGuirk. How are you, Doug?
Excellent. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you being on the show, man.
My privilege, my pleasure. I'm actually going to see if I can find it so I can. I'm gonna, if you're posting, if it's live.
It should be live now. You see it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Are you doing it from your personal page?
I'm doing it from my business page. Should be First Million.
It's called First Million?
Yeah. I can get to it too. And I think I tagged you. Let's see.
I'm not seeing it yet. Well, we don't have to waste our time on that. You can do the. We can come back.
Yeah, no worries. You know what? Let me just tag you either way to just make sure. My computer's giving me technology. Today's not working for me either. So hold on. Yeah, we are live. So I'm just gonna tag you really quickly. You should be tagged. You should see it. Okay. Nevertheless. While you're looking at that, let me just kind of give a quick introduction of you, and that way people can kind of get to know you. So Doug is an accomplished entrepreneur, musician, producer, inspirational, motivational speaker, and freedom hacker. Having run his own production company for over 10 years, contributing sales of over 150 million records and multiple Grammys, a partner in an international hardware and software computer company, toured the United States as a musician and as a Senior Peak Performance Strategist, national trainer, speaker for Tony Robbins, co-author multiple streams of Inspiring with Jack Canfield, author of The Chicken Soup for the Soul, Under Construction, Navigating the Detours of the Road to Recovery, and a master practitioner and trainer of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and board certified of Neo Ericsonian Hypnosis. As co-founder of Revolutionary Growth, Doug and his wife, Heidi, are committed to supporting the transformation of lives. His greatest passion is to help human beings achieve their full potential and dreams, to support positive paradigm shifts in human consciousness. His training and experience have given him keen insights and skills to support his clients to feed their passion and starve their fear by allowing them to discover the miracle they already are. His passion and enthusiasm is only exceeded by his genuine care and desire to honor your journey. Wow. I gotta say, that's a handful, man. That's amazing. That's definitely amazing. And I always like to give so much credit to all of this, the accomplishments. And then I always believe that there's a backstory, right? And so tell me more about where are you originally from, and how was your upbringing? Because I think that's a pretty important part in terms of your journey, right?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your light and everything that you do, and I look forward to you participating on my podcast coming up soon. So, the long and short of it is, like most people, grew up kind of feeling like something wasn't quite right. You ever have that where you're just like, where do I fit in? Like, just never fit in. And I grew up on Long Island, New York, in nice area, and but my family struggled to get us into the town we were in because of the school system. So we were the kind of the poor kids with, for lack of a better word, we were on the edge of town. We were like literally like the last block before the next town over, and. So I never quite fit in there because as growing up, like I was a rocker and and the kids that went to school, they were all much more, dare I say, conservative. They were wearing the Izods and the loafers and all that, and I was wearing my MC jacket, and it just didn't click, and so I actually got kicked out of every school I went to. I went to a school called Chaminade, which is a very prestigious parochial school, and they asked me to no longer return within the first year. And then I went back to high school, and I cruised on that for a little bit, but then I got asked to leave there. And then I just, didn't get along. And it wasn't because I had to get all these weird psychological tests and all this to find out, like, kind of what was wrong with me. And it wasn't intellect. It was just that I looked at things I was in the gray area where a lot of teachers were like this black and white, and I was like, well, I get that, but what about the gray? What about the other stuff? And that annoyed them. So I ended up getting my my diploma from the school. They actually, because of all the testing and all of that, they were like, look, you're not stupid, you're just behaving poorly. So they sent me to a school basically where I was tutored. So I had a full-time job while I finished high school because I only had to take the necessary classes, and I graduated with my class, went to the whole ceremony and all of that. And I went to one day of college. One day. And I went in and I was like, this is worse than high school. And I said, that's it. I'm just going to rock. Like, that is what my passion is. I had been in bands, and I just got to this point where I was like, I got to figure out how whatever I'm doing isn't sounding right. So I was like, I got to learn how to make records. I got to learn how to talk the language or learn how to do it myself. So I went on a drive around the country. The guy I did this with, I'm actually visiting, I'm seeing this weekend. We drove around the country and camped around the country where I just kind of immersed myself in like Tony Robbins. So let me back up a little bit. At like 17, I came home drunk one night and I was like, Mom, give me your credit card. And she's like, what for? I'm like, the Tony Robbins guy, the personal power. Like I like that. I think I want that. That'll help. And she's like, oh, we've got that, honey. I bought that. And it's downstairs. So I go down in the den, and it's still sealed. And I'm going to date myself here. It was on cassette. So that's how old it was.
Wow, yeah. And for those that don't know what that is, it's like this big old block of stuff that you probably don't find anywhere.
Right,
countries.
It was like this, right, this big, and it looked like books in a thing, and inside it were 2 cassettes. So anyway, I applied that, and I just started listening to it, and really helped transform a lot of my life. Got me on the path for personal development. But I had no idea beyond Tony or what else was available or events. Like I knew none of that. So I applied it, and then I drove around the country with a friend of mine, and I'm like, that's it. I'm doing music, 100%. And I went and I knocked on a door that was a studio on Long Island. And I said, look, I will, and I'd been there before. There's a backstory to that. But I said, look, I'll work here for nothing. And until I show that I'm valuable, then you'll pay me. Mm-hmm. And I'm interning. And I'd done my research, and, I looked into, I was like, well, maybe I could go to music college and do something, learn at school. There's a school called Five Towns College that taught music. Production and so forth. And I said, well, all the research I did, the people who were so successful, right? Now I'm doing modeling Tony Robbins, right? He said, you just find the most successful people and then do what they do, learn from them. So essentially, I lived off of credit cards as I was, I was living at home. I was like, 19. But I lived off of credit cards, and I worked my way up from intern to staff producer. And so we were making big records. We won a Grammy with Celine Dion, with J-Lo, the Chicago soundtrack, and the dating myself here, the peak of my career was when Napster came out.
Yeah.
So basically the industry shifted like dramatically, and the very technology that was creating Napster and so forth, the recording industry also got a major hit because now you didn't need a big studio. You could use Pro Tools. Like, it all went digital. You didn't need tape. You didn't need these big consoles. And it just started to slowly deteriorate. So I had to reinvent myself, right? I basically went from doing great to like losing everything.
Wow.
And I had to start over. And during that time, so let me back up, while I was going through all of this, I was also having some marital challenges, and I was like, okay, you know what? I got to dig in deeper, and went to a UPW. I bought the tickets on eBay. I didn't even know. I knew nothing about it because I really got it after I got into music and I was doing well. I would just start, I would go on eBay and I bought every Tony Robbins product ever like created, and then other stuff. So then that's how I learned about Marshall. I got passion, profit, and power from Marshall stuff, and so I fully immersed myself, and then I saw, as I was looking, there was tickets to UPW in New Jersey through the foundation on eBay. So it's like, okay, well, I don't even, what is this? Like, he's going to be down. Let me go to, and I literally had no idea what to expect. Went there with my now ex-wife, and it was like, it blew me away. Like, I was like, what the, like, this is better than a rock show. This is like, entertaining, but educational. I'm leaving better than I was before, and like, it just opened me up. And I was actually, the one I was at, the clip, it's been shown, Tony uses it. He worked with a 12-year-old girl who her belief was life isn't worth living, and he worked with her for like 2 hours. And obviously I don't show the 2-hour clip, but
right,
it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new level. So then I was like, okay, that's when I got into NLP. Then I got certified in NLP and all that. But I got into this environment. So 2 weeks after that, or so, I ended up going to, because now I'm on fire. Now I'm like, oh, there's more. This is a whole new culture. So I saw an ad in the Learning Annex that T. Harv Eker was going to be in town doing an MME, which is the Millionaire Mind Evening. So I went in, and it's funny. I was like, I walked in and they were like, doing a raffle thing, and I walk in and I'm like, I'm winning. I'm like, whatever it is, I'm winning. Like,
you already had the mindset.
Manifestation, yeah. So he does his talk and all of that, and then at the end, he's like going to pull out the winning ticket or whatever. And after he describes the event and he does, the whole thing, and then he opens it. I'm like, it's me. I'm getting it. And then he's like, okay, and it's number. Everyone, right? Basically, everybody got to go to the MMI. So I went to that, and it was Harv's first one in Brooklyn, in America, and I was like 1,800 people. So I sit down, and there's people, they just start talking about UPW. And they were sitting behind me, and I was like, oh, I was there. And like, you were? Yeah, great. Oh, we're part of the power team, the New York power team. I was like, what's that? And they go, well, it's a group. We get together once a month and we share resources and we, celebrate each other, and, we have different speakers come and all of that. I was like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that there's a group that gets together voluntarily, consistently to talk about stuff like this? And they're like, yeah, come on. I'm like, I'm there.
Right.
So I fully immersed myself in that environment, and I'm sharing that with you because that's how I ended up getting the gig with Tony. So I became, I was coaching and speaking at music conferences, and, things were all topsy-turvy. And a friend of mine moved to California, and this is like in, I guess in 06 or 07, and he reaches out. He'd become friends with Jarek, Tony's son, And it's like, hey, dude, like Tony's opened up a like a digital delivery of the UPW in New York. You know, you'd be great for it. You know, you interested? I was like, yeah. And then, you know, we can. I mean, I could talk for hours about all this, like, and how I got the gig with Tony, and how I almost lost the gig on the way. It took 6 months, but that was kind of like how I, you know, the peaks and valleys where, you know, got up to, you know, doing great in music, lost everything, had to reinvent, and then back up. And you know, the lesson learning is everything that you're sharing. You can overcome anything, right? It's just
and that's one thing. Like, kind of going back to that, like you talk about going, you know, that roller coaster, right? You're going up and down, up and down, and oftentimes I find and see that, specifically like the last couple of years, people have given up, right? I've lost just a friend. You know, he kind of took his life, and I think it was part of those things, those mental, you know, challenges that you go through, and you have these ups and downs. And so for you, obviously you've done so much for yourself. How do you do it to like kind of get up again, and knowing that although you kind of fell down, you still had the courage to get up and do it over and over and over? Because I'm sure you've gone through that so many different times, yet you're still doing it, right?
Yeah. So the part of it goes back to, and I'm going to hallucinate, you feel the same way, and I'm sure a lot of the people you attract. Ever since I was a young buck, I always felt like I was destined for something, like to add value, like to have an impact, to, like, I wasn't an accident. No one's an accident. And I always had this love for people and wanting to help them and support them. So if I back up a little bit and kind of share, and why I'm inspired to share this, during that up and down and all that, and I had to reinvent, and at this point I hadn't, I may or may not have been starting in talks with Tony, but my marriage fell apart, and I moved out, and nothing was happening in my music career. Like I couldn't get, like, it just nothing was happening. I think I ended up, just to make ends meet, I had gotten a job. It's called Mad Science. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like you dress up like a scientist, and then you go to after school programs and you teach science to kids, right? Yep. So it's part of the after school program, and it didn't pay very well, but, like, you know, and it was the way you made extra money was you could do parties. And I ended up doing a birthday party for a child of someone I went to school with, who, you know, now who's doing amazing. You know, they're doing it in the town I grew up in, and, you know, to buy into that town, even at the time, I think the cheapest house was like $800,000. So, like, it was like just like killing me. I'm like, really? Like, this is my life. Like, I didn't go to I wasn't going to go back to my high school reunion until I was famous. Like, I was just like, I was like, I'm going to show you, kind of thing. And here I am, like, at the bottom here. Then a guy that I had, that company, the hardware software company, we became very close. He was kind of my mentor, and he ended up dying in a car accident. So, like, and I was devastated, and I go to, like, my ex-wife, I basically given her the house and everything. And I'm like, look, until everything's done, don't have your new dude over. And of course I get there to tell her about my friend Eric passing away, and I see the dude's dog there, and his slippers underneath my side, what used to be my side of the bed. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the, like, really? So I remember, and I still have this. I remember going back to, which I was living at my mom's house at the time. She wasn't living there, but it was a house I took care of. It was nearby. And I just fell to my knees, and I have this red anvil case, like a briefcase, and inside it is where I kept my guns. And I sat there, and I just grabbed my 357 Magnum, and I'm like, what's the point? Like, this is like, why bother? Like, I'd be better off. The pain is too great. The uncertainty is too great. Like, I don't have an education. All I have, my resume is a discography that no one cares about anymore. And I was like, I'm gonna end it. And it's at the end of summer. It's like August, September, and I then, at that point, I had to, play some mind games. I was like, well, okay, hold on. Like, again, I got something, a little voice. You're here for a reason.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it is, but this is not the way to go. And my experience with Tony Robbins, I like at the UPW when we did the Dickens process, I had this awareness, this awakening, this philosophy is like, look, if I'm made in God's image, and if we all are made in God's image, then I'm dishonoring God by playing small. So I've got to be bigger. I've got to be bolder, and I'm here for a reason. So then I was like, okay, all right, well, there's something, but what? And then I was like, all right, well, gratitude. What am I grateful for? And then, of course, my brain was like, nothing. You live at home. You got no money. You gave you basically gave your ex the house, and you took the debt. Like, you're 6 figures in debt, and you got nothing. No prospects, no job, no nothing. And I may or may not, I think I may or may not have been at this point in talks with the Robbins organization. And then I was like, okay, well, if I wanted to be grateful, what could I be grateful for? And I was like, well, your mom doesn't live here, right? So at least you have that. Like, you may be living in her house, but you're not living with her. Like, okay, right. Well, that's a little bit better. And then I just started spiraling around looking for other things that I could be grateful for. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I was like, I got to get out of me. I got to get out of my head. I was like, I'm going to do, it was getting into fall. I'm like, I got to do a basket brigade. And I had led them before. So I was like, I just got to do one again. And then, of course, my brain was like, but you got no money. Because the few times I'd done it in the past, I was a major contributor to it as well. And I was like, well, no, hold on. But I know people I have resources. So that's what started to pull me out. I started focusing on that, and then just started to look outside myself and go, you know what, as bad as I may have it right now, I've been able to, I created a career in the music industry from nothing. And some of the things that I'd done in the industry were pretty incredible based on the fact that I had no experience, no anything. So I ended up feeding 55 families that Thanksgiving. And then I was in talks. It took me about 6 months. And that was probably that. Yeah, I was in talks because I was getting nowhere with the interview process. It took me over 6 months to get the gig with Tony. So it was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and Tony was speaking at the Javits Center. And during the interview process, they were like, hey, the VP or whatever when I had one call with him, he's like, I'm going to be in the Javits Center. Why don't you come, let's meet. And I was like, okay. And then the day before, whatever, they call me and they're like, yeah, we just let him go, but you could still go because Scotty and someone else is going to be there. You could go meet with him. I was like, all right. So I go there, and Scotty is Tony's brother-in-law. And so I had my conversation, and he was like, hey, do you want to hang out, watch Tony talk, and then maybe when he's done, maybe we'll, we can, do a quick meet. And I was like, dude, there's nothing that I would like more than to do that. But the truth is tomorrow I've got 20 people coming over to my house early in the morning, and I've got to pick up 55 turkeys tonight. Wow. I can't. I was like, this is weird, but I made this other commitment. And as much as, spend, and it wasn't even a guarantee, it was like a possibility thing as well. I was like, as much as this would, make my day, I was like, that'd be irresponsible of me to do. And so I didn't. But I ended up getting the gig, but that didn't happen until like, I don't think I started until February. So it took a month. It took a while to get that gig as well.
And one thing that you mentioned that I think it's so important to point out and you talk about is you have to get out of your head. And sometimes I was listening to, I don't know who I was listening to this morning, and one of our biggest weapons that we have is our mind, our brain, right? Mm-hmm. The things that go on in our head. And so I think you're right. You hit it off. When you get out of your head, then you can start seeing things from a different perspective, a different lens. And so that's so critical. Is that also part of the reason that kind of led you to the NLP? And for those that don't know what's NLP, maybe tell me more about why you got into NLP and how that has helped you too.
Great. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro meaning the brain, and nervous system, linguistic, language, both in like words and body language, and then programming. The guys that created it, one of them was Richard Bandler, was a computer engineer. So the philosophy was like, well, the brain, it's like a computer, so you could program it. And Tony, as you know, Tony Robbins is now neuroassociative conditioning, which is just a clever way to say neurolinguistic programming. It's semantics at that point. But so I got into it early because I was having challenges, quite honestly, feeling like I always felt like I was a misfit on the island of misfit toys. I felt like no one got me, no one understood me. And when Tony talked about NLP, and that was one of his, early, if you listen to some of his early stuff, he talks a lot about neurolinguistic programming. I was like, I got to learn this stuff. Like, that's, this seems like, something that I get, like it makes sense to me. And I used it to just on myself to just learn how to communicate more effectively and not feel so misunderstood. And then because I was having challenges in my relationship, I was like, I got to take responsibility here for my communication. Like, I'm doing something wrong here, so maybe I could, that'll help. And then also, as in music, as a producer, as an engineer, as I was working with artists, I was able to use these, this philosophy to be more effective at pulling great performances out of the people I was working with, as well as when I was on the road with myself, playing with the bands, meeting people, and all of that. But here, also the idea of like we spend the first half of our life like trying to fit in, right? So I learned NLP so I could be more effective at communicating to now we spend the second half of our life trying to stand out. So right. Now I'm using NLP to be more effective in communicating, to stand out, to rise above the mundane or to break through the din of all the other chatter that's going on and doing it with ecologically. So so that was that for NLP, and then I train it now, and it's just been a really powerful resource for people because it's really just language for what we're already doing anyway.
Right, and I got introduced to NLP too a couple of years back, and I got my certification too. The same thing though. I just wanted to do more of that, like be able to understand it. Like I like how you put it, right? You spend the first half of your life, trying to fit in the second half trying to stand out. And then very similar to you, like I wanted to figure out, okay, well, how can I better communicate? How can I, be more in the eyes of others and be able to relate to them in many different aspects. And then I've learned so much through just the NLP aspect of it. And at first I did it for myself. Now every now and then, people come in, like I can use some of those tools and techniques to help other people too, when it comes down to either limiting beliefs or ideas or whatever that might be, right? And so I definitely like that principle. And also a lot of the things that you're doing too, like, the fact that hanging around or looking for networks or people to be able to really get yourself more in that exposure aspect with the right type of people. And so having that said, you obviously are in the road, you're obviously doing a lot with music, you're all over the place. How do you choose your associations and the people you hang around with? Or how critical are they for you?
That one of the best gifts I got from Tony was surrounding yourself with people, and I say, surround yourself with people whose normal is what you aspire to. So I working in the music, like the studio that I worked at, we were making big records. So the artists who came in were, big artists, the writers that we worked with. And if we ever did have an outside engineer come in, it was an A-list guys, or I was always, I'm getting this sound sexist, but I never met a female engineer or producer. Not that they don't exist. It just wasn't there. It wasn't big in my world. But I digress. So I always would make sure that, if I was the smartest person in the room, I needed a new room. If I was the most creative person in the room, I needed a new room. So I was blessed in that I would consciously put myself in an environment and challenge myself to put myself in an environment with people playing at a higher level. And to this day, I still do it. And my wife, sometimes, now she gets it and she loves it, but sometimes it'd be embarrassing. Like I'd meet, a celebrity, or not celebrity, but someone who's got a lot going on, and they would come speak at, by the way, part of the story, after I went on the road with Tony Robbins for 4 years, got recruited to bring personal development to the behavioral health field, to the drug and alcohol treatment world. So my wife and I essentially ran a treatment center for 8 years. We ran a lot of the clinical, we ran the coaching and family program, we created it, and I spoke around the country on addiction. So I'd meet, like maybe someone would come in who was, a pretty big person, pseudo celebrity or what have you, and I'd introduce them, whatever, have them come out, and they'd be like, okay, cool, when we're done, like let's go grab dinner, let's go get something to eat, let's go hang out, and everybody's like, what are you doing? You just met this person. I'm like, well, he's got to eat. Like, right. But when I meet someone who is getting results that I would like to get, who's having an impact that I'd like to have, who's just accomplishing anything that I would say, hey, this would be great. This would be great value add if I could deliver an impact to that degree. If I could have that much of, as resourceful as that person is, or what have you, and I would just hang out and become friends with them. So I guess the message there is to everyone is that people you think may be too hard to get in touch with, or people you think are too busy or what have you, or you think they're too successful, they're just people. And the truth is if they're truly successful and they're grounded and spiritually centered, they want to share their successes. They want to help other people. It's a way of giving back, and it's also a way for them to keep their axe sharp as well. So I strongly recommend finding an environment and challenging yourself to greatness. I actually have the mentor mind. That's one of the things that I do, is just create that space so that people can be around people who are getting these great results and to be able to give back. If you think about it, I love Tony's example. He used, if you're playing tennis, if you're playing against a 12-year-old, you'd be able to beat them handsomely, and you may or may not feel good about it, but you won. But if you were to play against the top player, at the time, whoever that is right now, which is going to improve your skill set, by playing the 12-year-old or by playing the pro?
The pro, yeah.
Yeah, so if you can hang with the pros, the people who are getting those incredible results, it's naturally going to hold you to a higher standard. You're naturally going to start picking up some of their thought processes, some of their beliefs. And also, as you infiltrate that ecosystem, you also become part of the team, as it were, and then opportunities to add value will then, of course, come your way.
Yeah. And I know he talks a lot about raising your standards, right? He's always talking about that idea of raising your standards to be able to achieve more in your life. You talk about one of the things that you do is, with your clients, is be able to feed their passion and starve their fear. Give me some examples of how you go about, helping your clients with those two different things.
Great question. So when I was dealing with the fall of the music industry, I had to go, well, why do I do this in the first place? Like, why? Like, so, and I love Tony's 6 needs model. I use it all the time for almost, it's just a great filter. It's very elegant and simple, and it's only 6, so you don't have to go down like, oh, I got like 50 things. It's like, no, just keep it simple. So I look back, it's like, okay, why do I do music? What am I really passionate about? It's not just the music. The music is a vehicle. What's beyond that? What's behind that? What is the real driver? What is it that I'm passionate about? And I was like, well, okay, let me think about it. Well, I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about creating a space for people to have their moment. And when I went through the whole thing, I was like, man, what I loved about Tony was, it was like, oh, it's entertaining and it's educational. Like, you actually leave better off. It's like, whoa, I like that. It's like, okay, so my passion is not just like entertaining. I'm seeing my passion is adding value. Like, and I would look back to people would come up to me after, either music that I personally created or that I worked on, and I hear stories about how their life was changed, transformed. It gave them hope. It gave them a distraction during challenging times. It was at my wedding and celebrated, whatever it is. Like, okay, being a part of that, that's pretty badass. Okay, so I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about, like, meeting new people. So it's not like just going into like an office or that kind of thing. It's, I love just traveling and meeting new people and having that. So, okay, so I'm passionate about that. Perfect. I'm also passionate about serving, and for lack of a better word, it's God. It's like a servant leader, like being, this is my spiritual highest calling, is creating that space for people to have their connection to spirit, whatever that is. And music is a powerful vehicle, and so are events. And I use music at events. I mean, it's a powerful thing. It's like going to church. So when I'm working with someone, I'm also helping them unpack what is their passion. Why do they do X, Y, and Z? What's the joy they get out of it? What is that fuel? And then, so, feed that passion and then starve the fear, right? And so that came out of the old, I believe it was Native American, the story of the 2 wolves. Right, you've got the white wolf and the black wolf, or the good wolf or the bad, whatever, the 2 diametrically opposed wolves, right? And the young grandson asked grandfather, he says, the grandfather's like, well, you've got the 2 wolves inside you, and that for NLP that might be 2 parts within us, or we've got these, if we're all real honest, how many? We have enough voices in our head. We could have group therapy all by ourselves, right? So we've got we've got these 2 opposing forces, these 2 voices, and the old wise shaman tells this story, and then the young child says, "Well, but grandfather, which one wins?" And his response is, "The one you feed." Mm-hmm. So, just feed your passion, starve your fear is loosely, or not so loosely, based on that parable, but it's true, right? You get what you focus on. So if you're focusing on the fear, you're going to get more of it. You're going to experience more of it. It's going to take you over. It's going to fuel you when you focus on your passion. Focus on service, focus on adding value, focus on growth and contribution. You feed that, and that will grow, that will be nurtured. And those are the kind of results that I'm committed to experiencing, and leading by example and teaching others how to do the same.
Yeah. One thing I really like about what you just mentioned, I think it was definitely a golden nugget for people that are listening, is you got to kind of feel your passion, right? And so you got to go after what you're passionate about. For you talk about you like to be at service or help other people. And it reminds me of Zig Ziglar when he talks about you can have everything you want if you give people what they need, or something to that nature. And it really comes down to that. You're obviously with the music and all of that, it was all about being out and getting a message and helping people in one way or shape or form. Now you're doing that through transforming or helping people's lives in many different aspects. And so that's definitely good. I think a lot of times I think it was Les Brown, he talks about that there's more heart attacks that happen every Monday morning because people are literally dying to go to work the next day, right? And so we are, in this era where we're working for something that we don't really enjoy, or there's no passion. And yet you can definitely change that. It's a matter of making that decision or that choice. I always tell people that the decisions and choices that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. And if we create something that perhaps is not how we want it to be, then we got to be able to pivot immediately and make a shift, change that, whatever that might be, and just continue, right? And I think that's where perhaps many people are missing out on that opportunity, the opportunity of allowing fear to take away what's in front of you, right? In many different aspects.
Especially today, because there's so much evidence of things to be fearful, right? Just turn on the news and basically, like, well, and as we know, right? So the idea of no one tunes in for 70 degrees and sunny. Right. So now that you've got 24-hour news, multiple channels, all competing for your time, everything is an alert and everything is fear. And it's marketing. Like, I remember a good friend of mine is a radio DJ, and he's like, yeah, you got to have the hook, right? So, and so I started listening for it more, and you'd hear these great DJs, and they'd be like, the 3 things that are in your kitchen that can kill you instantly, that you must remove as soon as humanly possible to save your life and your children's life. What those 3 things are, we'll tell you after the break. Right. And so it's like, what? Like, but they know, like, that's what marketing is in that sense, is to essentially just put you, it's like messing with the amygdala, like to just get us in this state of fear to go, what do I do next? What do I got to do? And because we have multiple evidences right now of pain, right? Whether it's you've lost your job or you're, the virus or whatever it is, like, if you start focusing on that and make that your primary bit of, energy, we're screwed. And it's transcending, because now it's creating bigger problems, because now it's creating interpersonal challenges, because now if you don't agree with someone, it creates this new level of challenge and sadly for some disdain for somebody else, and it's it's not real. That's focusing on the fear. That's not being present to God. That's not being present to love. That's not being present to our passion. Although sadly, passion could be also, someone could be passionately against whatever their their position is. So, now more than ever, we need to be in a state of love, a state of grace, a state of appreciation, of understanding, of compassion. And, a lot of good people are unfortunately behaving in ways that are not sustainable and are not helping.
Yeah. Why do you think is that? Why do you think that people rather live in fear, or the bad publicity, the bad programming, the bad, like, people tend to tune into all negative stuff, right? If I can have a one commercial and I can talk about guns and drugs and sex or all this negative stuff, and I'm gonna get probably a lot of people watching, and then I can talk a second time about how I can change your life and all positive things, and probably have one person watching. Yeah. Why do you feel that people tend to, maybe the 95%, I guess, people tend to go more with the negative? Because as you mentioned, news, TV, radio, there's so many different things that can be so negative. Again, people tend to tune into that versus, hey, here's a way for you to change your life. It actually reminds me, before you answer, it reminds me of another quote that Les Brown talks about. He says, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And so I think that's part of it. But let me get your opinion on that.
So there's a lot of layers to that onion, of course. Right. It's very complex. So a couple of high-level philosophies to filter through. One, our brains, our nervous system are wired for non-pain. So what's interesting is that we spend so much time avoiding pain, we actually lock ourselves into a state of pain, right? Does that make sense, right? So our brain is always looking like, what's going on, right? What does it mean, and what am I going to do about it? Now, through all those filters, now we start looking at a whole bunch of things. We have, unfortunately, identities coming into play. So if we look at just the way things have unfolded in regards to positioning, it's now identity politics, and they use it, identity politics. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that someone is assuming an identity which naturally has, based on the models that we've got here, an enemy. So now people are like, and it's a lot like addiction, right? This is, watching this all happen, watching this unfold for the last few years, or last 2 years, right? Since it all started. And I've always taught, using Tony's model, I've always taught that model of the idea that, just try on, is depression actual depression, or is it addicted to the state of depression? Right? Because you get secondary gains and it meets all your needs, right? You get tons of certainty, right? Think Eeyore, right? Tons of certainty, tons of variety, tons of significance, especially if you've been diagnosed by someone, who's got, the best doctors. All the doctors in the world have diagnosed me with they say I have clinical depression, significance, and connection, right? Oh, how you doing? You want to talk about it? Right? So, boom. Tony's model, any behavior that meets 3 or more needs at a high level at the same time, that can become an addiction. So I was like, I'm noticing all this. So then when all of this COVID stuff started happening and I started watching people doubling down on certain behaviors and certain mindsets, it's like, this looks exactly like when I worked in treatment. The people coming in and like, nope, the only way to solve this problem is through alcohol. The only way to solve this problem is through sex or food or whatever. And it's like, okay, so it's not that it's the comfort zone, it's the familiar zone. People are just comfortable in that pain. And then they get to hang out with their other friends who say the same things. And we've seen it on Facebook. Where else? Like, could you imagine? And it's happening, and it started on Facebook. And this is what's so scary, is how on Facebook it's easy enough to go, you know what? I'm not going to be friends with you anymore. I'm unfriending you. I'm not following you anymore. All of that. So now, since I've been doing it there, well, now in real life, you know what? I'm cutting you off. I don't like what you have to say. I'm not even going to talk to you anymore. I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to. And while it may be painful, it's very certain. But then they get all of that secondary gain from their crew, the people they hang out with. They go, yeah, screw that person. Yeah, I wouldn't talk to them. Yeah, you're not going to hire them, right? And now you have cancel culture is born. But like, if you look at how all that happened, at the end of the day, if you just back it up and go, wait, why do you want that? Well, because I want to be happy. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if that's really what you want, let's talk about that, not how we get there. Purpose over process. Because too many people are telling you, no, you shouldn't do, like, I may have shared this with Marshall, and I use this as an example. Again, full disclosure, I am I believe I'm a Second Amendment supporter. But here's the deal. It's not like the NRA or people with guns are thinking to themselves, you know, it would be awesome if we could arm more people so that they could kill each other. They're not doing that, right? And the people, the good, I'm not talking about, there's another level of weirdness, but I'm just talking about the average, everyday person like you and I, who they go, you know what? Guns are bad and people shouldn't have guns. Why do you need guns? They're not thinking, you know, it would be great if we could take all the guns away from law-abiding citizens so that we can kill them, right? They're not thinking that either. They're like, their mindset is, look, if there are no guns, no one will get killed by them. Now, take away the rationality of either argument and you just take a step back and you go, okay, but can we both agree that what we really want is for us to be safe and secure and be able to know that our families are going to be okay and not harmed. Yes. Okay. We've got to start there, right? Now we could start peeling away and have a little more understanding and compassion for the strategies by which we're experiencing that. And that's where right now I think we're losing some perspective, is that people are so focused on process, not on purpose, and they're locking into an identity. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, I'm a libertarian. And then what does that mean? And then, like, and it's amazing that no one, like, when someone says identity politics, like, what that actually means is, like, you are, like, that is because the strongest need in the human psychology, as you know, is to be congruent with the way it identifies itself. Right. So you can't go, if Democrats do this and Republicans do that, you can't move from one of those. And we continue to have this by design because we've created a model through which pain is a natural part of it, instead of going, okay, wait a minute. No, you're not a Republican. You're not a Democrat. You're not a liberal. You're a human who may have different ideas about how we experience certain things, but let's get right back to the core. We're still people. We should do that with our clients. Like, we did not allow our clients in treatment to identify as an addict. Now, if you're familiar with the AA program and all that, one of the things you stand about, hi, I'm Doug, I'm an alcoholic or whatever. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Let me just let's find out what that means.
Right, exactly.
What do alcoholics do? For you, what do they do? And they go, well, they lie. They cheat, they steal, they drink, they do drugs, they do, they're horrible, all this. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You think it's a good idea to consistently remind yourself that your identity is liar, cheat, steal, manipulate? Like, how's that sustainable? How can you move forward like that? What's your relationship with that identity? So then they would start saying, well, hi, I'm Doug. I'm a grateful, recovering alcoholic or something like that. So, okay, now the precepts are gratitude, recovery, and you have a malady, an allergic reaction to alcohol or what have you, and it's not sustainable. But that's not your defining characteristic if you have to say it at all.
Right.
So I know that was a long tangential answer to your question, because it is very complex and there's a lot of parts to this conversation, which is why we're so far down this road, because there is no one panacea. There's no one, well, there is God, but that has been attacked as well.
Right. And part of that, I mean, I think it definitely it could be a long conversation. There's so many different influences, as you said, identities, influences that are driving that. And, I think part of that, a lot of it it comes down to more or less educating and or discovering, all of the things that come with that. A lot of times we just tend to listen to the news or listen to, our neighbor, whatever the case may be. And we tend to believe that without even doing the research and or discovering what really is intel in that. So,
well, and that's where people don't want to do the work. It would be uncomfortable.
Right. Exactly.
Right? No, marketing, right? If someone said, hey, look, I can help you lose 30 pounds, but it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be sore. You're going to be all that. And they're like, well, that doesn't sound like I want to do that. And they go, or you could take this pill. Yeah. And pay $200 a month, take these pills, and you don't have to work out, you don't have to get uncomfortable, and it's just going to fall right off. And of course it doesn't, because in the fine print it says,
exactly.
take this and do all the hard work that you don't want to do to get the results.
Right, exactly. No, yeah, you're very true on that. So you have a free training, the iFreedom hack now. Tell me more about that. I'm definitely going to have that on the comments, but tell me more about that.
Yep, actually I can, where's my little thing here? I'll put up that one. I forgot. So iFreedom hack is essentially my base, there you go, my base program. So essentially what it is kind of what we talked about. I do talk about some 6 needs stuff, but I go over how we could create emotional, spiritual, financial freedom, right? The old saying, wherever you go, there you are. So the model I kind of look at, and this is, NLP and Tony and all of the different experiences that I've done, and then all the work in the treatment center. It's like, man, drugs and alcohol aren't the problem. They're the solution. They're a way that someone gets to feel a bit of freedom in that moment. They get to, essentially dissociate from their pain, right? To take away, numb it, or add to their pleasure. Either way, the goal is to create a sense of freedom. If we boil it down, if we really think about everything that we want, even when it's happiness, when we say we want happiness or joy, whatever, what we're really saying is we want and desire strongly the freedom to create what we want to experience. Right? I mean, if you think about it, if someone is, or something, yourself is always really the one who prevents you from having happiness or joy or experiencing love or whatever, you are now your bondage. You're a slave to your thoughts. You're a slave to everything that is preventing you from getting the results that you want to experience in your life. And you shared earlier, right from the beginning, is our biggest enemy is ourself. So really the freedom hack is about breaking free from your own demons, right? And understanding the secondary gains, understanding why that part of you always seems to go and run that same pattern and sabotage or all of those things. So the Freedom Hack program, the iFreedom Hack now, if you go to that, it's a free training, and we get into it. We talk about, refer to the 3 pillars of transformation, which are state, our emotional state, the strategies we implement and use, and then the story that we are telling ourselves and the story that we're going to be writing. So, I mean, that's, high level, but the goal of Freedom Hack is to empower people to be able to consciously make decisions and go through life, to consciously add value, to go for their dreams, to overcome anything. Because the only thing, and I'm sure it's in your book, I haven't read it yet, is the only thing that is stopping you is yourself.
Yeah.
And that's, you can overcome everything, because really anything is always, it comes back to your relationship with whatever that thing is.
Right.
And Freedom Hack is, the purpose of that is to break free from the chains that have habitually held us back.
Yeah. It reminds me of an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm. And it goes back to that point that we've been talking a lot, and it's the mind, the brain, whatever you have going on inside of you. If there's no enemy inside of you, there's nothing that can stop you on the outside. And then we create all these limitations, right? Doug, if people wanted to connect besides iFreedom Hack now, what else? Where can they find you?
Breakthrough with Doug. I think it's Break Free with Doug. Hold on, I think it's Break Free. Let me go here. I'll post it in there. Yep. Breaking Free with Doug.
Okay.
Is my page on Facebook, because my friend page is full. And then LinkedIn, Dr. Doug or Dug McGuirk on LinkedIn, Doug6, DUGSIX on Instagram, and iFreedom Hack Now. You can get that free training, or Revolutionary Growth. If you look down the bottom corner there, bottom right, revolutionarygrowth.com. That is my wife and I's company. And my wife, by the way, should have her on as well. Love Coach Heidi. .com. She's better looking than me. She's smarter than me. She's funnier than me. And the two of us, we are committed to, again, having an impact and helping the world transform positively.
I love that. We'll definitely have to have you both back together on another interview. The last question I have for you, and we talked a lot about different things. Actually, I have 2 more questions for you. One of them is, we talked about a lot of different things. For the people that are listening to us or are watching this, if they are going through any kind of challenge, whatever that might be, what is one or a few things you can say to them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
Well, a few things. First of all, remember that you are bigger than any challenge you'd ever face. You are bigger than any challenge you could ever face. And the good news is that any obstacle that does come your way, that means that you have the power within you, the resources, the resourcefulness, and the opportunity to create your life by your design, and that perhaps any challenges or resistance that you're receiving is meant to be.
I love it.
Because if you ask some of the most successful people who've overcome incredible challenges, I haven't met one that hasn't said, man, that was the biggest gift I could have ever experienced.
Yeah.
And like, these are people who like lost their limbs and like crazy stuff. And you'd be like, really? You don't want your limbs back? And they're like, well, practically speaking, yes. However, who I am now, what I've become, and my connection to God and service and all of that, like I freely give my attachment to my limbs to be the person I am, the spiritual person that I am now.
Yeah, it reminds me that from every experience or every pain, a purpose is born, right? Mm-hmm. And when you can see through that, and you can actually see that the love and what came out of that, and what you can do now for not only for yourself but for other people, it's amazing. It's definitely amazing.
100%.
What is some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you up, motivated, positive? Do you have any? Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals. Do you have any rituals, any habits that you do daily?
Well, exercise, right? Get your body moving. My preference is racquetball. I love playing racquetball, and especially with players that like we do a lot of running.
Yeah.
My wife does Zumba. I guess the when I get introspective is serving. Like, I love just adding value and serving. So doing things like this and having these conversations, just being curious, and then just variety of prayer. Whether it be meditation or just gratitude, just asking God for guidance, just let me be your vessel, be a voice, be a vehicle, and take myself out of it as much as possible. While I'm here, I'm not, because I'm doing my best to the certainty I get is not from control, it's from letting go. And that's been a practice and still is, because it's one of the books that was really powerful for me was Power versus Force, and therein lies a great distinction. Are you forcing something, or are you accessing your power? And for me, and I believe for everyone, when they boil it down, is the power comes from God, comes from something that is beyond our comprehension, yet we know it's there.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Well, Doug, thank you so much for being here. Really had a great time with you in this conversation. I know we can definitely go on for hours, and so definitely really enjoy that. Anything else before I let you go?
No, just thank you so much, and of course, I'm going to send you the link to do The Real Deal. Yeah. Anything that I can do for you to serve you and add value to your experience, to your world, is my absolute privilege.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you share this podcast, because somebody definitely needs to hear this message. Please go ahead and check out the ifreedomhacknow.com and connect with Doug. And I will be seeing you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good one.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform, where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.